If you're scared of heights, terrified of falling out of a perfectly good aircraft, bored by the idea of human flight, and nervous of trusting your life to a few strings and a flimsy canopy, then be warned, skydiving is not for you. For millions of people, skydiving is the most fun you'll ever have. For others, the dream of flying like a bird is a dangerous obsession. This is the story of two pioneers who have won and lost the game of cheating gravity. On board this Hercules aircraft is Adrian Nicholas, professional skydiver and aerial cameraman. He films skydive record attempts all over the world. Today, it's Sweden.
18,000 feet, two Hercules flying just above the stall, wingtip to wingtip in formation. 107 Swedish skydivers, 6 camera flyers, waiting to try and set a world record.
Adrian is one of 6 aerial cameramen who will use helmet-mounted cameras to help judge a formation world record attempt.
Come with me. Come see what it's like to really fly. Come into the formation. I see you.
Adrian is 36 and British. He left school to become a rally driver. He then dabbled in professional wrestling and ended up as a radio host. In his spare time, Adrian flew helicopters and planes and picked up a serious skydiving habit. Over 5,000 jumps in 4 years. One day, while skydiving onto the North Pole, Adrian met his mentor, Frenchman Patrick de Gaillardon. In the late 1980s, Patrick invented the sport of sky surfing. Previously, skydivers had been happy just to fall in space before opening their chutes. Patrick redefined what it's possible to do in the air. Patrick's grandfather was an aristocrat. He was brought up in a chateau near Lyon, France, by his grandmother. His mother was killed in a car crash when he was only 2. As a young man, Patrick made a few jumps, but was less fascinated by the actual parachuting. It was what you could do before you opened your canopy that excited Patrick. What Patrick really wanted was to fly. Really fly. Like a bird. A wingsuit of his design would make Patrick's dream come true. Early versions of the wingsuit, made from a lightweight parachute material, allowed Patrick to move through the air in a way no one had ever done before. Three years after their meeting, Patrick suggested that he and Adrian team up. He taught Adrian to fly his spare wingsuit, and together, they flew. This was just the beginning. Their great dream was to explore the possibilities of human flight and set a new world record together. In April 1998, They were in Hawaii shooting a skydiving movie, and between takes jumping the wingsuits. On April 13th, they made a routine test jump. At first, the jump went perfectly. Patrick flying maneuvers in his distinctive orange suit, Adrian beside him in formation, filming. They flew wingtip to wingtip till they reached 3,000 feet. Adrian broke off and pulled his chute. Patrick banked left to open at a lower altitude. Then, on that perfect morning, tragedy struck. Patrick's main canopy couldn't open properly, and the reserve chute became entangled in the remains of the first. He plummeted to earth. A technical fault had ended his dream. After this tragic loss, Adrian wanted to carry on in Patrick's memory, using the original wing design. With the blessing of Patrick's family, Adrian would attempt a record-breaking flight in his honor. Mankind's dream of flying goes way back to the ancient world. A classic Greek myth tells of Daedalus and his wayward son, Icarus, who built wings of wax and feathers to escape from imprisonment on the island of Crete. The boy, despite warnings, flew too close to the sun. The wax melted and he crashed to his death. This salutary tale hasn't stopped copycat birdmen, from cranks to serious engineers. But however hard they flapped, the outcome was always the same. In 1912, Franz Reichelt, an Austrian tailor living in Paris, developed a safety device for stricken pilots, the parasuit. Reichelt tested his cloak of stiffened wires by making a preparatory leap from a barn roof onto some straw. He then applied to fly the parasuit for real from the Eiffel Tower. In front of a crowd of bemused journalists, he prepared to jump from a ledge 200 feet up. After sickening second thoughts, Reichelt made his leap of faith. Reichelt's only testimony was to be this bit of film and a large dent in the ground. During the early 1950s, Frenchman Leo Valentine, an ex-paratrooper, invented a contraption of wooden wings that bolted around his torso. By 1954, he had developed a rigid set of wings that would allow him to make a controlled descent in a tight spiral. In May 1956, the Frenchman made a display jump at an air show in Liverpool. Observers said he looked nervous. As he left the aircraft, his wing shattered on the doorframe. When he deployed his parachute, it tangled with the wrecked wing. Then, his reserve wrapped itself around the whole mess. It was his death shroud. Valentine, the great birdman of France, came home to a hero's funeral. Some people are prepared to risk everything for a few moments of flight. Adrian and his partner and wingsuit technician Katarina Orlakainen were there when Patrick died. They're still committed to the cause. For the professional skydiver, you jump to live and live to jump. In memory of Patrick, Adrian and Katarina returned to make a base jump from one of Europe's highest legal jump spots, and Patrick's own favorite. A base jump is from anything that's not an aircraft, and this one's a cliff outside Brento in the Italian Alps. There are only 12 seconds to impact. Jumpers wait for over 8 seconds before opening their chutes. The skill and thrill come from forcing the human psyche to do something it's screaming not to do. time to get back to business. Adrian and Katerina are ready to kickstart their attempt at the wingsuit world record. Since Patrick's death, Katerina has made some modifications to the original wings. She's also designed a new prototype suit based on the ideas she and Patrick had. Adrian needs to test fly both. Tucked away in the countryside of southwest France is a massive motor in a huge concrete tube that curves around an area the size of a football stadium. This is one of Europe's largest wind tunnels, and it's run by Onera, the world-famous French research center for aeronautical engineering. A propeller the size of a two-story house is capable of generating a turbulence-free air blast at 400 miles an hour. Normally, planes and space rockets are tested here, but today the scientists have a Birdman.
Onera is going to give us the first chance to really see how my wingsuit is working. We'll get a real close look at the wings and see how they react under different circumstances. It's going to save us hours and hours and hours of fruitless testing in the air.
Suspended from counterbalanced wires with pulleys to avoid being literally blown away, Adrian lifts gracefully up into the flying position. After this short warm-up and calibration flight, Adrian and Katerina are impatient to get the new suit design, this one green, into the tunnel. Apart from color, the essential difference between the two is the size and shape of the wing section. The orange suit has an arrow-shaped wingspan, rather like the swept-back wings of a fighter jet. The new green wings are larger than Patrick's design and give more surface area. Katerina hopes they'll help Adrian glide further.
We want to try to make a better glide angle and also be able to find out a little bit here the connection between how long you can stay in the air and what speed, forward speed you are using. So maybe find the ultimate glide angle.
Small pieces of wool, called telltales, are sewn onto the edge of the wings to show up the airflow and wing profile. The bigger green wings will need to be stretched very taut by Adrian's arms to create extra lift.
The idea is to be able to use the human body as efficient as possible in the suit, because that's where you have all the strength, and also that's like the only rigid part. It's like the skeleton of the wing. So we have to figure out the best way to use Adrian's arms and body.
We start with
40 and 74 miles an hour.
74.
So it's exactly the same as before?
Yes.
If that's
just
okay?
To compare.
Yes.
Okay.
I think this will be very tiring.
Okay. Yes, I think so. Yeah.
I think so.
It takes enormous physical strength to fly the suit. The new wings are not only larger than the orange design, they have to be held much further forward into the wind blast. It's soon obvious that the wing profile will need more work before it can be taken into the sky.
When you have
The Onera scientists are on hand to analyze the tests so far. They explain to Katerina that the secret of Patrick's small wings is a vortex created above them during flight.
One-third of the Concorde lift is obtained by vortex. Yes, due to the vortex on the wing. This vortex is on the wing and gives a lift with a...
The Concorde-like design of the orange suit creates a spinning or vortexed airflow above the wing. When flying fast, the vortex produces lower air pressure above the wing, giving the wings lift. This means Adrian is truly flying. The testing process has proved human arms just aren't strong enough to support wings big enough to maintain a climb. Past Birdman disasters illustrated this. The tests have also shown how Patrique's wings create an airflow that produces lift. The orange suit is the template to build on for the world record attempt. Since the tunnel costs $35,000 a day, Adrian allocates the rest of his time to testing his orange suit.
I've always wanted to fly. I believed in Peter Pan till I was about 28 or 29. I used to have dreams that I could fly. I'm very lucky. Leonardo da Vinci gave his right arm for one day as me, which is bizarre, really, because I don't suppose anybody else would.
In 1490, the leading light of the Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci, took time off from painting the Mona Lisa and dissecting dead bodies to design a fall-breaking parachute, though there's no record of it actually being flown. Da Vinci's design involved a square of 4 poles that supported a canopy. He wrote, "A roof of linen, 12 arms in length, 12 arms in height, will allow a man a safe descent." Da Vinci's design would probably have worked, as parachutes from the 20th century, like this classic paratrooper's round design, have very similar dimensions. During the 1960s, the sport of landing on a precise marker took off. A radical new design of wing-like canopy was born. This incorporated a series of self-inflating cells, forming a rigid aerodynamic surface. Known as the ram air parachute, because of the way air is forced into the canopy, the chute now had real flying capabilities. Throughout aviation history, the parachute has been man's primary non-mechanical form of flight. In 1797, Frenchman André Garnerin, a pioneer of the early ballooning craze, made the first ever parachute descent. Garnerin chose the center of Paris to inflate an unmanned hydrogen balloon and attached a simple parachute to it by rope. Watched by a fee-paying crowd hungry for horror, Garnerin climbed into a basket suspended below the parachute. The theory was simple. The balloon would carry the parachute and pilot to 2,000 feet. Garnerin would slice the rope and descend on the chute. To the astonishment and probably disappointment of the crowd, the contraption actually worked. The parachute opened, but swung violently from side to side, causing him to throw up over his not-so-adoring fans when he landed. It wasn't until 1837 that bloodthirsty audiences finally got what they were paying for: England's first parachuting fatality. Robert Cocking was a gentleman adventurer and artist with more courage than sense. Cocking naively thought he could solve the instability problem by turning the parachute upside down. In front of vast crowds, he took off from London, attached to a piloted balloon. Cutting himself away, the parachute instantly imploded. Cocking plummeted to his death. Following in the boots of these great parachute pioneers was Dolly Shepard, the British parachute queen, who made her first jump in 1904. Kind of like a showbiz manager, her astute boss, Captain Auguste Gaudrin, billed the 17-year-old as the greatest attraction of the show. Dolly then jumped for nearly a decade from both hot air and gas balloons. Each time she was paid the princely sum of $5. With her daringly sexy knickerbocker costume, she wowed crowds of up to 20,000 all over England. Dolly would take up her trapeze bar, no harness in those days, and ascend to 4,000 or 5,000 feet, waving a silk Union Jack. The parachutists were the pop stars of the day, and Dolly was mobbed with offers of tea, gifts, and even marriage. In 1908, Dolly hit the national headlines, making a double jump with first-time parachutist Louis May. Both girls were to pull away on separate parachutes from the same gas balloon. They rose to 3,000 feet. The crowd waited with bated breath for the double jump, but no parachutes mushroomed. Louis' chute had failed to separate from the balloon. Dolly instructed Louis to swing across and cling to her. This was the first mid-air rescue in history. But they landed so hard that Dolly was paralyzed. Yet, within a couple of months, she was jumping again. Dolly lived well into the era of the professional skydiver. She died in 1983, aged 96. Today, the crazy skydive show goes on. Technology's changed, but the love of thrills and spills remains the same. For Dolly Shepard and her contemporaries, it was a triumph just to land safely. But display parachuting soon became about canopy control, and in some cases, lack of it. It's called pond swooping, and that's basically what you do. Skim the water for as long as possible. These competitors are pushing the Ram Air chute to its flying limits. In pond swooping, you have to use the lift potential of the canopy. The air that is rammed into the tube-like cells fills up the canopy's wing shape. The faster-moving air on top creates low pressure and produces lift. To win at this game, you have to wait till the very last second to pull the nose of the parachute up, then fly as far as you can without stalling. A stall spills the air from below the wing, and much to the crowd's delight, you make a humiliating splashdown.
Nobody told me you could get wet in this sport.
Pure large overdose of raw satisfaction.
Raw adventure has made skydiving a booming business. At an air base in Sweden, Adrian and Katarina's flying skills have been called on to film a major skydiving event. Today, it's 107 Swedes hoping to come together in the biggest single-nation mid-air formation in history. Hours are spent practicing on the ground or dirt diving. It's better to make mistakes here than at 18,000 feet.
I'm going to depend on you when I get my back.
Adrian and fellow cameraman Tony go through their camera moves. Tony will film an official wide shot from which the event will be judged, while Adrian gets the free fly camera.
You'll pick me up on my second lap. Imagine any other camera person has a tripod and all this other nonsense that he has to cart around and try and move people into his view. Who wouldn't want to be able to have their hands free and every part of their body free and just move your head any orientation, any place you want in a totally three-dimensional way to try and record something?
To get 107 skydivers into the air at once, simply call the Swedish Air Force. They've provided 2 Hercules C-130 aircraft. There's plenty of room for over 50 skydivers in each. It's time to turn their dirt dives into a skydive. This world record attempt is a national effort, and it wouldn't have been possible without the skilled formation flying of the Hercules pilots. The Hercules climb rapidly to 18,000 feet to give the skydivers the 70 seconds of free fall they need to get the formation together. They need extra oxygen when flying at over 10,000 feet with the plane doors open. Without it, they may feel dizzy or even black out. A few final instructions. It's time to leave by the back door. 107 men and women, 6 camera flyers, and a dream within their grasp. The skydivers will accelerate to an average speed of 120 miles an hour, the terminal velocity for their standard freefall body position. But watch the bottom of your screen. Adrian catches up with the formation by flying head down. This way there's less air resistance, and he can reach well over 200 miles an hour. This is where it gets very dangerous. Any accidental opening of a chute or a tumble in freefall could end up in a collision, and the combined speeds are fast enough to kill. Adrian continues in his distinctive flying style, upside down. Many skydivers are astonished to see Adrian flying like this. In theory, if you point your body vertically to the ground, you should fall faster than anyone in the conventional belly-to-earth position. Adrian's unique flying skills, also used when flying the wingsuit, are at the moment his trade secret. When the person in the center opens their chute, it's time for the whole formation to break up.
For me, I get so much pleasure just from flying, just from being there. Imagine if you're filming Formula One, but you're given a car to join in the race to get the special angle. That's what it's like.
In August 1998, 107 of Sweden's top skydivers linked together in what they call the snowflake. They held the formation for over 8 seconds, 5 more than the record books required. The event was captured by 6 camera flyers and is a new world record. It's even more remarkable, considering formation skydiving was only discovered to be possible a few decades ago. This is the Elsinore Parachute Center in California during the 1960s. A group of ex-Army paratroopers started a company whose slogan was "Selling Gravity." With the French and the Russians, they were among the early pioneers of free fall techniques. Before, it was a question of just falling through the air, then opening the canopy. These innovators realized that this airtime could be safely extended. So, new freefall techniques had to be invented through trial and error. Their efforts seem clumsy now, but they were inventing the wheel of skydiving. Finding a stable position in freefall is kind of like learning to ride a bicycle. At first, impossible. Tiny movements will flip the body into a spin, but it's incredibly easy once you learn how. Within a few years, as confidence and experience grew, individuals were achieving the unbelievable feat of passing an object to another person during flight. The modern sport of skydiving was born. This pioneering time was the era of the right stuff, the height of the Cold War, and the beginning of the space race. The U.S. Air Force was conducting a series of experiments to see if they could recover astronauts or rescue pilots from high-altitude spy planes. This is Operation Excelsior in the New Mexico desert, August 1960. Test pilot Captain Joe Kittinger is about to make a balloon ascent, then jump from 102,000 feet in a spacesuit. The trial run nearly killed him. This is his third attempt. 20 miles above the Earth, Kittinger left the balloon and started a drogue-stabilized freefall that was to last for 4.5 minutes. The longest skydive in history. In the near vacuum of the upper stratosphere, his body accelerated to 714 miles an hour, breaking the sound barrier. A sonic boom was clearly heard from the ground. He floated to Earth and into the record books. No one since has made a freefall from such a height, though some have died trying. Joe Kittinger is still going strong today, and in 1984, he became the first man to fly solo over the Atlantic in a balloon. At the age of nearly 70, he's still barnstorming his way around the world, breaking records. Adrian's jump will be from less than 1/3 the height of Kittinger's, but he will try to fly rather than fall into the record books. The attempt on the unassisted flight world record now moves to Tilstock on the England-Wales border. With the help of specialist aerial photographers Peter Degerfeldt and Goran Wiedenby, Adrian and Katarina plan to photograph the suit in flight. Katarina has made some small changes to the suit based on what she's seen in the wind tunnel test.
What's the difference on this one compared to the one you tested in the wind tunnel?
The shape of the wing.
The shape? Yeah.
Yes, the shape of the wing,
bigger
definitely. The ribs in the wing have a different shape. You will get, hopefully, a better wing profile of this. And this is just actually a middle step, because we can see if we are on the right way for the next model that we are tinkering on right now. And if I can start give my wish list, I would like to see the wings as much as possible from above to see really how they inflate and how they work. And if Adrian has a good trajectory, he will have a lot of speed when he passes by you.
So I swoop you, and then I come down to Peter and I swoop Peter.
Yeah.
Katarina wants to film some experimental flybys to look at the shape of the wings in action. Adrian will zoom past the two cameramen at a blistering 120 miles an hour.
What I'm very interested in too is the angle he's flying in and how the wings are working in different angles of attack, just like an airplane.
Yeah.
If you're using flaps or if you're using an ailerons a lot or whatever.
How about the safety? If we have a collision, which way do you want? Which way do you want to have the safety zone?
When in doubt, go left.
We won't be in doubt.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go.
Katarina is looking for information to help refine the wings. She needs to see Adrian's arm position when the wing fabric is taut in full-speed flight. Then, she may be able to expand them more successfully than the wind tunnel prototype. It's going to be a difficult afternoon for Peter and Goran. There's no way they're going to be able to fly forwards at 120 miles an hour with Adrian. So, they plan to leave the aircraft 1.5 miles before him and open their chutes. Then, they'll float under their canopies, separated by 1,000 feet of altitude, like a staircase. This way, they can film Adrian as he screams past. Goran goes into an altitude-losing spiral to place himself below Peter. Adrian will travel a further 2 miles upwind for his flight back down through the carefully placed camera staircase. Adrian, this first test flight went very well. But it was to prove a big surprise for the camera team, trying to film an object moving at 120 miles an hour straight past them.
They frightened me to death.
What a shot! Yahoo!
I had a really good one. Did you?
Wow!
And I can see how he turned around to go for you again, like a spiral.
Wow!
Uh-oh, okay. So we were too close to each other.
Yeah, we should have more
really
separation.
Good, yeah. But I waited 40 seconds. Then I went, and I pulled a 9.5 grand.
It was so hard to adjust them. He's coming.
Yeah.
He's coming. He's coming. No.
Yes.
Wow. Did you make a barrel roll towards me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could tell. He's barrel rolling.
So I had to do some hiding.
Yeah.
I should have gone.
The problem is, Adrian's flying so fast. The wind tunnel had shown that the wing shape created a vortex of air and gave lift only when he flew fast. Peter and Goran prepare to jump again and catch the 120 miles an hour Birdman on film. To help them get the pictures, Adrian flies with a smoke canister attached to his leg. They will run their cameras to capture slow-motion images and hopefully Katarina's elusive shots. Peter and Goran get the shot, and Katarina can analyze the suit in flight. At 120 miles per hour, the hollow ribs in the wings are inflated by the air being forced or rammed in through the vents, the same principle as a ram air parachute. This gives the wings rigidity in flight. Katarina is sure that in the future she can increase the wing size. Although, looking at the pictures, she thinks Adrian is flying his current suit to its maximum capacity. He's ready to go for the world record attempt. However you look at it, the wingsuit is dangerous. Until Adrian gets out of the wings, he can't fly his parachute at all. If he has a malfunction, he will have to cut away the main chute and pull the reserve, which he's been forced to do 3 times already. In the United States, about 30 people die every year parachuting. But there'd be many more if it weren't for the fact that you can cut away your main chute and call upon a reserve. Madeira, California, and 17 women parachutists hope to get attached to each other in a potentially life-threatening aerial maneuver. The idea is, step by step, to build a stack of canopies with each jumper locking her feet into the risers of the parachute below. This is very complicated flying and needs calm, clear weather as well as a calm, clear mind.
Pop it, you're gonna lose it.
Finally, the tricky maneuver is complete, and the women can enjoy flying in perfect formation. But keep your eyes on the lower half of the stack. As the formation breaks up, the chutes entangle, and go into an uncontrollable spin. It's only quick thinking and equally quick reaction from jumper Becky Livingston that averts disaster. Becky pulls her cutaway handle and cuts herself away. Moments later, she deploys her reserve chute.
My bridle got tangled up. The bridle is a piece of fabric that is used just to deploy the canopy, and it just hangs and dangles back after open and does nothing except cause trouble. And it wrapped around Patty's lines, and the weight of both of us in the flying of the canopies was keeping either one from flying right. So because I was the low one and mine was the most tangled, I cut away, and that way you saw she was able to come down under hers and drag mine behind.
All skydivers fly with a reserve chute and hope they never need it. These chutes are of extremely high quality and must be packed by a qualified and licensed rigger. You can see how quickly Becky has to react to deploy the reserve. Cold comfort for Adrian, who can't solve any problems with his hands tied in the wingsuit. With the death of their friend Patrick de Gaillardon still fresh in their minds, Adrian and Katerina are in California to attempt the world record for the furthest unassisted human flight. There's only one civilian skydiving center in the world that offers jumps from 30,000 feet, the same altitude that 747s fly at over the Atlantic.
This is a connection that will hook into here, and this is just a push-to-fit type connector. This is what you'll be disconnecting when you leave the aircraft. All it takes is a few pounds pull.
Specialist training is needed to cope with the extreme cold and lack of oxygen at these altitudes.
Bailout is going to be used to provide oxygen in freefall. Just prior to disconnecting from the aircraft, you're going to be activating this system, then disconnecting from the aircraft and leaving it so you have a supply. Inside the aircraft,
high-altitude jumping is risky. The changes in pressure are like those experienced by a deep-sea diver. Jumpers can even experience a version of the bends.
You're going to be putting your body through quite a bit physiologically. We're going from ground level, where it's going to be very warm, 100% oxygen, which your body's not used to, going up within a half an hour to 24,000 feet, or within an hour to 30,000 feet, and then within a few minutes you'll be back almost to sea level again.
The pressure change between sea level and 30,000 feet can cause the nitrogen naturally found in your blood to bubble, the bends. Adrian and Katerina will spend an hour on the ground breathing pure oxygen to avoid this.
If you're going to jump from 30,000 feet, it's very good procedure to pre-breathe for an hour before you go to that sort of altitude to make sure there's absolutely no nitrogen left in your system. You're saturated with oxygen within a few breaths.
Blood saturated with oxygen also helps to avoid hypoxia, or oxygen starvation. The higher you are, the less oxygen there is. At 30,000 feet, you'll need extra oxygen at all times. If you don't, you will be unconscious in 2 minutes, and very soon, dead.
Skydive 2, radio check.
Read you loud and clear. Figure around flight level 270. We're going to call back for a wind check.
Copy on that.
On the way up, the plane carries jumpers who will exit at the more conventional height of 12,000 feet. Adrian needs to make a practice jump first. Even for a seasoned jumper, high-level jumps are risky.
350, lost 423.
He will exit at 24,000 feet to acclimatize himself to the oxygen system and the cold. Restricted by the wingsuit and the very high airspeed of the plane, Adrian's exit is far from perfect. The next thing anyone sees is his parachute streaming to Earth. He flew for 20,000 feet, but when he deployed the main chute, the twisted lines spun him all over the sky in wild gyrations. He just had time to cut away a wing before he could cut away his main canopy and open his reserve.
Sorry. Give me 2 seconds. It gets pretty busy. I cut away because I couldn't breathe. I'm trying to get up to it and I can't. It's time to go.
It's impossible to untangle a parachute when the wings are still attached. The main canopy had wrapped around his neck and was strangling him as he tried to free the wings.
Before you cut away your main canopy, you've got to get rid of the wings. With the amount of tension and the way that you're hanging in the harness like this, it puts a lot of tension on all the cables running up inside the wings. So it takes more than one go to lose the wings. I got one wing clear. It was time to go then, because I'm spinning much harder and the risers are sort of right around here, around your neck on each side. It's like someone just jerking like this, so it's time to go.
This is now the 4th time Adrian has had to fall back on his reserve chute. As the saying goes, any landing you walk away from is a good one. The next morning, it's time for the real thing. A 30,000-foot jump and an attempt to fly further than any other human being in history. It's been a long night for Adrian and Katerina, and naturally, with Patrick on their minds, they've been going over the risks of this record attempt.
Life is a risk. There's a huge risk in life. The biggest risk in life is that you'll waste it. Is that you'll be 80 years old and kicking yourself saying, if only I'd done this, oh, I wish I'd done that. The biggest risk in life is that you waste your opportunity of living it.
Despite everything, they plan to go ahead. They have checked, modified, and rechecked the wings. They have tested every aspect of the suit. But when you're cheating gravity, it's never without risk. Because of the speed Adrian will be traveling, there's no one to fly a camera that can follow him.
He's good to go whenever he wants to go.
His progress will be recorded by GPS, a global positioning computer.
Go, 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 go. So he's within...
At 9:30 on September 23rd, 1998, 5.7 miles above the Earth, Adrian Nicholas exits the plane.
Oakland Center, Kilo 170 Alpha. We have all skydivers away.
The pilot and those on the ground lose contact with him almost immediately. No one sees his chute open. And for a long 30 minutes, no one knows where or how he is. Finally, he's found walking along a farm track 5 miles southwest of the airfield, far beyond anyone's expectations.
Where have you been? Halfway around the world and back. It's a huge crosswind. Flying crabbing sideways to stay over the road. Felt like a long time. A long time. Plays tricks on your mind. It's not a sensation you normally get making a skydive.
With over 4 minutes of flying, Adrian has spent more time in free fall than anyone other than the space jumper Kittinger. But more importantly, he's traveled 9 miles from the point he left the aircraft. The GPS computer confirms the distance as a world record for human flight.
It still feels like a lie saying it now, but I flew 9 miles thanks to Patrick de Gaillardon's wings, and it was fabulous. I got over 4 minutes. 4 minutes seems forever. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. You see the ground rushing past underneath you, and you really travel. You hear the speed in your ears. I've waited to do this for so long. So, thanks, Patrick.
Adrian achieved a dream that many have died for. With the wings invented by Patrick and the support and ingenuity of Katerina, Adrian has put himself in the record books. His own brand of athletic skill and determination have made him the first human being to break all the rules. Adrian has flown further than any other human being.